The Twin Towers, iconic pillars of New York's skyline, stood as testament not only to architectural grandeur, but also to human ingenuity and tenacity. Rising during an era of ambition, these monuments of steel and glass required innovation at every step of their creation. The story of their construction is a tapestry of design, engineering, and human spirit, weaving a narrative that, even in their absence, continues to inspire generations worldwide. Historical context. The late 1960s and early 1970s were a time of significant transformation and upheaval, not just in the United States but worldwide. New York City, always at the epicenter of change, was no exception. Amid the bustling streets and rising skylines, the socio-economic climate was shaping a new era of ambition, challenges, and opportunities. The post-World War II boom had led to the United States emerging as an economic powerhouse, but by the late 1960s, this boom was giving way to economic challenges. The nation grappled with inflation, rising unemployment, and an oil crisis, casting a shadow of uncertainty over the American dream. New York City, with its diverse population and dynamic economy, was deeply impacted by these challenges. Manufacturing jobs, once the backbone of the city's working class, were declining. Simultaneously, the financial sector in areas like Wall Street began its ascendancy, marking the beginning of New York's transformation into the global financial hub it is today. Amidst this flux, the city was undergoing an urban renewal phase, driven by powerful real estate interests and governmental bodies. Old neighborhoods were giving way to newer, modern developments, aiming to rejuvenate the city's image and make it more business-friendly. This period witnessed the razing of the old Penn Station, a move met with public outrage, leading to a strengthened historic preservation movement. The city's infrastructure, too, was evolving, with the completion of projects like the Verrazzano Narrows Bridge in 1964, linking Staten Island to Brooklyn. In the midst of this changing landscape, the idea for the World Trade Center began to take shape. Culturally, the late 1960s and early 1970s were years of significant change, marked by the Civil Rights Movement, anti-Vietnam War protests, and the burgeoning feminist movement. The cultural and social revolutions shaped the city's ethos, fostering a climate of resistance, questioning, and reinvention. This backdrop is essential in understanding the World Trade Center's genesis. While the towers were fundamentally economic and architectural endeavors, they were also deeply embedded in the cultural and societal shifts of the time. Conceptualization and design. The World Trade Center's journey from a nascent idea to the iconic towers that would dominate New York City's skyline was a tapestry of vision, innovation, and collaboration. It was a colossal endeavor that merged aesthetics, functionality, and ambition, driving architects and engineers to push boundaries and reimagine the very essence of a skyscraper. The seed of the idea can be traced back to David Rockefeller and the Downtown Lower Manhattan Development Association, who proposed the establishment of a world trade and finance hub in the city's Lower Manhattan area. The initial idea was modest, envisaging a complex with 3 buildings. However, as discussions progressed, the concept expanded, eventually evolving into a grander vision of twin towers. To breathe life into this ambitious vision, the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey, which took charge of the project, enlisted the expertise of architect Minoru Yamasaki. Yamasaki, known for his blend of modernist and traditional architectural styles, was tasked with designing what would be the tallest buildings in the world at that time. Collaborating with Yamasaki was the eminent structural engineer Leslie Robertson, who faced the Herculean task of ensuring the tower's stability and safety. Yamasaki's initial designs were driven by a desire to create an environment that fostered community interactions while also maximizing rental space. This led to the proposal of over 80 smaller towers. However, realizing that such a design might result in a chaotic and congested space, he consolidated the concept into 2 majestic towers. These towers, envisioned to be very tall but with a slender profile, were to be symbolic of grandeur, resilience, and the indomitable human spirit. One of the defining features of Yamasaki's design was the facade, characterized by narrow vertical windows and Gothic-inspired arches. This unique design not only gave the towers their distinct appearance, but also addressed Yamasaki's personal fear of heights by minimizing the sensation of vertigo for those inside. The structural challenges posed by such an ambitious design were myriad. Traditional skyscraper construction methods, which employed a dense grid of steel columns and beams, would consume too much of the rentable space. Robertson's genius lay in developing a groundbreaking structural system. Instead of scattering columns throughout the interior, he proposed a perimeter structural system with 59 columns on each side of the buildings, combined with a core structure housing elevators and other utilities. This revolutionary tube system not only provided the necessary structural support, but also freed up vast open floor spaces inside. Additionally, to counteract the immense wind forces that the towers would be subjected to, Robertson employed viscoelastic dampers. These devices, placed between the columns and the floor trusses, absorbed the energy from the swaying motion, ensuring the tower's stability even during the most potent windstorms. It's worth noting that the design was influenced by more than just architectural and engineering considerations. The socio-economic climate, the drive for urban renewal, and the quest for symbolic representation were all instrumental in shaping the tower's conceptual journey. The Twin Towers were not merely structures of steel and concrete, they were emblematic of New York City's aspirations, resilience, and its unwavering gaze towards the future. The culmination of this intricate dance of design and engineering was a blueprint for two 110-story towers, soaring to heights of 1,368 and 1,362 feet, respectively. These structures, while monumental in scale, were also meticulously designed down to the smallest detail, from the plaza with its iconic sphere sculpture to the underground shopping concourse. Construction materials and techniques. The World Trade Center's Twin Towers, in their soaring ambition, demanded not just visionary design, but also a radical rethinking of construction materials and techniques. The construction narrative of the towers is a compelling exploration of innovation, where traditional methods met cutting-edge advancements, resulting in structures that defied gravity and expectations. Central to the tower's construction was steel. Approximately 200,000 tons of it were used, serving as the primary skeletal framework. But this was not just any steel. The sheer height and design of the towers required high-strength, specially formulated steel. This material could bear tremendous loads, crucial for supporting the immense weight of the buildings and withstanding external forces, particularly the powerful winds of the New York City environment. The revolutionary tube system concept, conceived by Robertson, involved creating a robust perimeter structure. This system employed massive vertical steel columns, closely spaced around the building's exterior, creating a rigid tube. These columns, fabricated off-site, were prefabricated sections, welded together in a sequence, ensuring both speed and precision during the erection process. The central core of each tower, housing elevators, stairwells, and other essential utilities, was another steel-reinforced behemoth. This core acted in tandem with the exterior tube, providing additional strength and stability to the overall structure. One of the most innovative aspects of the tower's construction was the use of lightweight prefabricated floor assemblies. The floors themselves were a composite construction, a blend of steel trusses and a concrete layer. The trusses, spanning the distance between the core and the perimeter, provided support to the floors. These trusses had a unique viscoelastic damping mechanism, a critical element in imparting the tower's resistance to wind-induced sway. The use of prefabrication meant that large sections of the flooring could be manufactured off-site and then hoisted into position, streamlining the construction process significantly. Another pivotal material in the construction narrative was concrete. Nearly 425,000 cubic yards of it were used in various capacities throughout the towers. The most prominent usage was in the construction of the building's bathtub and slurry wall foundation, subjects of deeper exploration in subsequent chapters. However, within the towers themselves, concrete played a dual role. It provided additional structural integrity to the floors and served as a fireproofing agent, especially on the steel trusses. Speaking of fireproofing, It was an essential aspect of the tower's construction, given the building's height and the potential risk of fires breaking out at such altitudes. Fireproofing was paramount. The primary fireproofing material was a spray-on mixture containing asbestos, known for its fire-resistant properties. However, health concerns surrounding asbestos later led to modifications in the fireproofing composition during maintenance phases. The vast curtain walls, or the facade of the towers, were another marvel of construction material and technique. Comprising over 43,600 windows, this facade was not just about aesthetics, but also about functionality. The narrow 22-inch wide windows, a design choice by Yamasaki, were set within aluminum-clad columns. The choice of aluminum, light yet durable, ensured that the towers' exteriors remained gleaming and resistant to the elements. The final touch in the construction materials spectrum was the vast amount of marble, especially in the tower's interiors. Lobbies and various other sections boasted marble finishes, enhancing the aesthetic appeal and providing a touch of opulence. The foundation and bathtub. Building the Twin Towers of the World Trade Center wasn't merely about touching the skies, it was equally about delving deep into the earth. The placement of the towers in Lower Manhattan near the Hudson River brought forth a set of unique challenges, chief among them being the need to establish a robust foundation that could both support the immense weight of the towers and contend with the nearby river's subterranean pressures. The Hudson River's proximity meant that the site was underlain by waterlogged soft sediment. Traditional deep foundation methods would have been insufficient, and there was a real risk of water from the Hudson inundating the site. To overcome these challenges, engineers and architects embarked on the creation of the bathtub, an ingenious and monumental engineering solution. The bathtub was essentially a massive, watertight excavation, allowing for the construction of the tower's foundations and basements below the Hudson River's water level. But building this bathtub was no simple task. It required the formation of a perimeter wall around the intended excavation site that would keep out the river's waters. This was achieved through the innovative use of slurry wall construction. A slurry wall is a reinforced concrete wall constructed in deep trenches filled with a viscous, clay-heavy mixture called slurry. The process of creating these walls began with the excavation of a trench, which was kept filled with the slurry to prevent its collapse and to keep water out. As the trench was excavated deeper, the pressure of the slurry counteracted the surrounding Earth's pressure, ensuring the trench's stability. Once the desired depth was reached, a steel cage reinforcement was lowered into the trench. Following this, concrete was poured in, displacing the slurry, which was then recycled and reused. As the concrete set, it formed a solid, watertight barrier, capable of holding back vast quantities of water from the Hudson River. This method was used to construct a series of interconnected slurry walls, enveloping what would become the World Trade Center site's bathtub. This massive bathtub spanned 500 feet by 800 feet and descended 70 feet below ground level. Its walls, in some places, were as thick as 3 feet, ensuring they could endure the immense lateral pressure exerted by the surrounding earth and water. Within this confined space, the actual foundation work for the towers commenced. For the towers themselves, deep foundations called caissons were employed. These caissons, cylindrical shafts drilled deep into the earth, reached down to the Manhattan schist, a solid bedrock layer capable of supporting the tower's colossal weight. Upon these bedrock-anchored caissons, the load of the entire World Trade Center complex was distributed. The combined use of the bathtub and the deep caisson foundations represented a masterstroke of engineering. Together, they ensured that the Twin Towers had a solid foundation, impervious to water infiltration from the Hudson and capable of bearing the structural and dynamic loads of one of the world's most iconic skyscrapers. However, beyond the pure engineering marvel, the bathtub and foundation work of the Twin Towers encapsulated the spirit of the entire project. They were emblematic of the challenges faced, and overcome, a testament to human ingenuity, determination, and the relentless pursuit of pushing boundaries. For while the towers soared impressively above ground, their true strength and resilience lay in what was achieved below, in the depths of Manhattan's earth, shielded from view but crucial to their very existence. Skyscraper engineering challenges. The endeavor to raise the twin towers of the World Trade Center was a voyage through a myriad of engineering challenges. Each step towards realizing these iconic skyscrapers was marked by hurdles that tested the mettle of designers, engineers, and constructors alike. Yet every challenge faced was a chance to innovate, refine, and redefine skyscraper construction. One of the most significant challenges was ensuring the stability of these colossal structures against the formidable force of wind. Skyscrapers, by their very nature, act like sails, catching and being affected by wind loads. Given the unprecedented height of the Twin Towers, designing them to stand resilient against the gusts and gales of New York's weather was paramount. The solution was found in the revolutionary tube design conceived by structural engineer John Skilling and Leslie Robertson. This design utilized a dense grid of steel columns on the building's exterior, effectively creating a stiff tube that provided the much-needed rigidity to counteract lateral wind forces. Moreover, the towers were designed with a specific sway tolerance, allowing them to move in response to the wind without causing harm or discomfort to the occupants. Yet, wind resistance was not the only challenge to address. The sheer height of the towers presented logistical issues in terms of elevator capacity and efficiency. Traditional elevator designs would consume too much of the building's usable space, and this is where the innovative concept of sky lobbies came into play. Instead of having a single set of elevators going from the ground to the topmost floors, the system was divided. Occupants would take express elevators to sky lobbies, essentially intermediate floors, where they could then transfer to local elevators serving individual sections of the building. This design, introduced in the Twin Towers, was a pioneering approach to vertical transportation in super-tall structures, optimizing space and ensuring efficient movement of people. Another intricate aspect of the tower's design was the floor assembly. Given the height and scale of the buildings, it was imperative that floors could be constructed efficiently without compromising on strength. The solution lay in the use of lightweight, prefabricated floor trusses. Not only did these trusses expedite the construction process, but they also incorporated viscoelastic dampers. These dampers absorbed the energy from the building's movement, further enhancing the towers. Resilience against wind-induced sway, and offering an additional layer of safety and comfort for occupants. The tower's sheer verticality also meant that there were increased risks in the event of emergencies, like fires. While the structure was primarily made of steel, it was vital to ensure that this steel was adequately protected from potential fires. The initial solution was the use of an asbestos-containing spray-on fireproofing material. However, with growing concerns about the health implications of asbestos, this approach was later reviewed and alternative fireproofing materials were sought. But beyond the physical challenges lay the psychological ones. Architect Minoru Yamasaki was acutely aware of the need to make occupants feel secure, despite being at such dizzying heights. His solution was the design of narrow, 22-inch wide windows, which, while providing ample daylight and views, also gave occupants a sense of enclosure and security. Economic and labor aspects. The construction of the Twin Towers was not only an engineering marvel, but also an immense economic undertaking. It involved not just brick and mortar, steel and glass, but intricate financial maneuvers, relentless funding pursuits, and the dedication of a vast workforce, all converging to transform an ambitious vision into a tangible reality. The financial footprint of the World Trade Center project was staggering. The initial cost estimate for the entire World Trade Center complex was around $280 million in the 1960s. However, by the time of completion, due to inflation, changes in design, and other unforeseen challenges, the cost had ballooned to over $1 billion. It's worth noting that this figure, when adjusted for inflation to today's terms, would equate to several billion dollars, emphasizing the scale and economic magnitude of the project. The bulk of the funding for the World Trade Center came from the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. the bi-state government agency overseeing the project, while the Port Authority had the means to generate significant funds through its various operations, such as bridge and tunnel tolls. The sheer expense of the Twin Towers project required a multifaceted funding approach. This involved a combination of bonds, rents from anticipated tenants, and other revenue streams like concessions. Additionally, the Port Authority entered into a crucial 99-year lease agreement in 2001, which further aided the financial dynamics associated with the complex. But while figures and finances were essential, the real pulse of the Twin Towers construction was its workforce. Thousands of men and women spanning various trades and professions converged on the construction site daily. These individuals, often working in challenging conditions and at dizzying heights, were the backbone of the project. Construction workers, often referred to as hard hats for the protective gear they donned, worked tirelessly, pouring concrete, welding steel, installing windows, and more. They were a diverse group, representing a wide array of backgrounds, skills, and experiences. Electricians, plumbers, masons, ironworkers, crane operators, and countless other trades collaborated, often synchronously, ensuring the project's steady progress. Beyond the immediate construction roles, there were others, often behind the scenes, equally crucial to the tower's rise. Engineers and architects frequently liaised with the on-ground teams, addressing challenges and ensuring that the design's integrity was maintained. Logisticians ensured that materials arrived on time, given the project's just-in-time delivery approach due to limited storage space on the site. Safety officers, given the scale and inherent risks of such a massive project, had their hands full ensuring that protocols were followed and that the workforce remained protected from potential hazards. The labor aspect, however, wasn't without its challenges. The construction site of the Twin Towers bore witness to numerous strikes, disputes, and disagreements, often centered around wages, working conditions, and union representations. These interruptions, while momentary setbacks, were emblematic of the broader socio-economic landscape of the 1970s, a time of significant labor movement activities in the United States. Yet for all the challenges, what remained consistent was the sense of purpose and camaraderie among the workforce. Many workers expressed a profound sense of pride in being part of such a historic project, a sentiment that echoed long after the towers were complete. In the grand narrative of the Twin Towers, while the architectural marvel and engineering prowess often take center stage, it's essential to remember the economic endeavors and the labor force that fueled its creation. The towers stood not just on their deep foundations, but on the financial strategies that made their construction feasible, and the sweat, grit, and determination of the thousands who worked to raise them skyward. Public reception and legacy. The public's reception to these iconic structures, both initially and over time, and the enduring legacy they have imprinted on architecture and engineering, is a narrative interwoven with emotions, admiration, and inspiration. When the towers first graced New York City's skyline, they were met with mixed emotions. Architecturally, they were a stark departure from the ornate skyscrapers that dotted the city. Their minimalist, modern design, characterized by clean lines and vast reflective surfaces, elicited both awe and criticism. For some, the towers were a bold statement, emblematic of the city's progress and its aspirations for the future. For others, they were perceived as oversized monoliths, out of place and scale with the surrounding cityscape. Yet, beyond aesthetics, the Twin Towers were a statement of purpose. They were envisioned not merely as office spaces, but as a hub of global trade and commerce. The World Trade Center complex was designed to be a nexus where businesses from around the world could converge, collaborate, and propel forward. And as the towers filled with tenants and the plaza bustled with activity, the public began to warm up to them. The observation decks, in particular, became sought-after destinations, offering unparalleled views of the sprawling city below. However, the true legacy of the Twin Towers transcends their physical presence. In the realm of architecture and engineering, they ushered in a new era of skyscraper design and construction. Their innovative tube design became a blueprint for many subsequent super-tall structures, emphasizing the importance of wind resistance in skyscraper engineering. The concept of sky lobbies introduced in the towers was adopted in various other buildings worldwide, showcasing a novel approach to managing vertical transportation in immense structures. Moreover, the tower's construction methodologies, from the bathtub foundation near the Hudson River to the use of prefabricated materials, showcased the possibilities and challenges of urban construction. They stood as a testament to what is achievable when innovation, determination, and collaboration converge. The Twin Towers also left an indelible mark on the collective consciousness of society. They became intertwined with New York City's identity, featuring in countless films, photographs, and artworks. They were symbols of the city's resilience, ambition, and ceaseless drive.